Hello and welcome. I'm excited to be here today. Happy Friday. Today, I am excited to talk with Anya Faruque. She is deeply passionate about empowering and guiding individuals to step into the best version of themselves through cultivating self awareness. With 5 years of experience as a professional matchmaker and over 15 years as a gymnastics and dance coach, Anya's expertise is grounded in a lifetime of exploration into the feminine and masculine mind. Can't wait to dig into that.
Mm.
Her work is shaped by her own transformative journey of facing and embracing her inner shadow and alchem I can never say that word, alchemical,
Alchemy.
that has fueled her understanding of personal growth. Through this powerful experience, Anya empowers her clients to move beyond negative stagnation, unlocking the ability to trust their inner strength and wisdom. Anya believes in the importance of self ownership, romanticizing every moment of life, and leading with a soul full of gratitude. Her approach encourages individuals to embrace their true potential and live with purpose and authenticity. Oh my gosh, Anya, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so honored for the introduction and to be here with you and just have a fun conversation with
Yes.
you. Yeah.
So Anya and I worked together as professional matchmakers, and I was also a date
Mhm.
and relationship coach with that company as well. So tell us about your journey of, I mean, that's a big leap from a gymnast to a
Yeah.
matchmaker and a love. What did you tell me you're calling it? A
I'm a love
love consultant.
consultant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that, right? So tell us a little bit about your journey from there to here.
Of course. So, funny enough, I never thought matchmaking was a
Right.
position. It was just never on my radar,
Yep.
you know? And I grew up as a gymnast. I actually never saw myself coaching, but the opportunity presented itself, and I decided, why not? Fell in love with coaching. You are helping people in a physical aspect, but also in a mindset aspect as well.
Sure.
So several years into that, it's a very physical position. You are, lifting kids and catching them. And so I had got to a point where I was ready to have more flexibility. And I was alongside that on a journey of understanding relationship dynamics. Why does someone choose this specific container of relationship versus something else? And so when I want to know something, I go through, you could say, almost like a master's degree, where I will just read the books and listen to all the videos and podcasts and just soak up information and find the curiosity of, does this resonate to me? How do I feel about this? And
And
so
can
I was
I ask,
on this journey.
were you curious because of what you were going on what was going on personally? Was there a reason that you were curious about this at that time?
That is such a good question. So I was in a relationship at the time, and I was around through the dance scene that I was a part of. I was around untraditional relationships, meaning open relationships, different ways of relating.
Sure.
And I have always felt in my resonance the track of monogamy is more for me. I do see marriage in my future.
Yeah.
So I was around this crowd, and the person I was with, we came to an agreement of exploration to
Hmm.
see how this worked. So I really dove in to learn for myself.
Yeah.
And that is a topic in its own way.
Yeah, I bet it
It
is.
was
Yep.
incredibly hard.
Yeah.
But I also learned an extensive amount. So that's what maybe pinpointed and started the
Sure.
journey of that. So then, in leaving coaching, I was looking for something remote. And so I was on Indeed, I was on all the job sites, just uncovering what's out there. And I had seen a listing for a matchmaker position. I'll be honest, I thought it was a scam.
People have said to me, "Oh, are you a job recruiter?" And no, they think of you're matching somebody with a
Yes,
job. Yeah.
yes, like business matchmaking
Right.
development. So I saw it, read it, didn't put much meaning to it. I was on a trip in Texas, and I ended up meeting someone who formerly was a matchmaker and, ended up sharing how they loved it, which then brought back that job listing. And
I'm gonna
I
go back to
went back to
Indeed.
it. I said, you know what? Let me go back to this.
Yeah.
So I ended up just applying with only the intention of curiosity. I didn't know where this path would lead. So I started part-time and I fell in love with it. There's something, as you know, so beautiful in just helping people find each other,
Right.
helping them see there's, another path outside of the dating apps and maybe just putting yourself out there in person. Where I did that for probably 6 months and then I decided to do it full time.
Nice.
And here we are.
Nice. I love that. And now you're in your own business.
hmm
So share a little bit about how you work with people in your own business.
Yes. So I love to work with people who have the desire to grow, the desire to unlock a deeper part of themselves. And what I mean by that is when someone says, I want to work with you, I will send them an application process. Now, I don't love the word application because it has such a stern tone in
You've used the word curiosity a few times, so I'm just gonna invite you to maybe look at it's a curiosity form.
a curiosity form. I love that. I will have to take that. Yeah, I like that. So it goes through a series of questions that helps me understand the person, as in where they're at, where they want to go, and if there's any current struggles or things that they're working on. And so based on that, if I feel this is something I can add value, then I will work with them. And how I work with people is on a 3 week session aspect. So I do over 3 weeks. We meet once a week for an hour and a half to 2 hours, whether it's over Zoom. If we can meet in person, I love to meet
Oh,
in
okay.
person, but
Yeah,
not always.
sure.
So and we work through uncovering but the parts of themselves really that they want to run away from
Yeah.
and find that inner magic. A lot of my philosophy is there is such deep magic inside of us. And I have to say, going back to the journey of going through an 8 year relationship with someone where we started with the vision of it's going to be us, we're going to, get married, we're really going to have that traditional track.
Yeah.
And then, we broke up for a year. Then we got back together and really had the intention of we're going to make this work. And then we, brought into the exploration of the open relating and through that journey. And then ultimately me deciding, hey, that this container is not for me. And to love you in the fullest expression, I need to step away from this.
Right, right.
So it was through that, I remember that breakup telling myself this will be the most transformative thing
Yeah.
I'm gonna go through to the date or that I know of, right?
Right.
So and so that really opened a catalyst where I stopped running away from that intuition that you feel, where you're like, something is telling me this, but I want to hold on to external love. And so I really, really sat with every part of me that I wanted to run away from. Just
Right.
every part that I was like, I don't want to feel that. And it allowed me to have such deep compassion for other people because I was, for the first time, holding such deep compassion and grace and understanding for myself, where I started to uncover this magic that exists. And I always tell my clients, there's nothing I've tapped into that you can't tap into.
Right.
And so my goal in anyone I work with is not we need to continue working together forever, but I'm going to come alongside you on part of your journey and help you through my experience find your magic and empower you to really tap into that self resource that, has divinely been planted in you. And just sometimes we need someone to help us pull the weeds away and peer in. And sometimes we just need to do it not alone. And I did it alone. I went into the cave per se,
Yeah.
and I was so surrounded by, mentors and people that I trusted. But so I feel very called to share this with people and just for them to experience that magic that I get to experience every day.
I love that. You
Mm.
talk about facing and embracing your inner shadows. Was that relationship the turning point for your journey that led you to that transformative work, or was there something else that led you to that?
That is a very interesting question because as I look back in the knowledge that I have today, I can see points where in that relationship, there was definitely a little voice speaking, "Hey, I need you to sit with this. I need you to look at this shadow," right? At the time, my present self in that space wasn't able to really give the attention to it. So I would say the breakup where I chose to then say, I will finally listen, I will finally hear this voice, this deeper knowing. Um, and thankfully, I had been, in my journey of understanding relationship dynamics, it had led me to meet different people who had different forms of therapy, different ways of, sitting with themselves. And so it was almost like looking back, I see the little journey that I took. By the time I was ready to crack open, I had
Right.
the tools. So a big part that I used was IFS, which is interfamily system therapy.
Yeah.
And I remember telling myself, I'm gonna go into the cave, as in I'm gonna sit with this darkness, and I just want to know what it has to say. I
Yeah.
don't need to fix it. I don't need to do anything. I just want to know what it has to say. And that's really where the embracing my inner shadow built this. Once I started to feel the parts that I was like, no, I'm gonna suppress that. I began to be curious. I began to, what else is here that
Right.
I haven't, I've been pushing it away, almost like a best friend that's like telling you, hey, I really need you to hear this. And you're just like, yeah,
No,
yeah,
not
another
nope,
day.
nope, no.
Yeah,
Well,
no, no, no.
and I think that's why so many I loved when I became a coach with the matchmaking company because so many people hired a matchmaker, but they didn't change their patterns and behavior. So they were having the same result and blaming the matchmaker, blaming the person they were on a date with, whatever, right? And I can remember interviewing people and when I would ask, why did your relationship end after 15 years, after 20 years, after whatever? The response was always, oh, we just didn't have anything in common anymore. Oh, we just
Mm.
grew apart. Oh, and I used to think to myself, wow, it really was that they probably got to this point of in the relationship where there were triggers, right? We come into relationship as two wounded people picking at each other's scabs sometimes, right? And then you have a choice. You either get the infection or you work on healing the scab, right? And
Mm,
that's a
I love that.
choice,
And I
right?
love how you pinpoint it as a choice.
Yes,
And I think as matchmakers, when we receive a client, they want us to make a match happen. And
right.
it's not a bad desire. I think it's
They
our
want
title
us to change their life,
exactly.
right? And we can't do
We
that for
can.
anyone,
Mm-mm. And I
right?
love that you said love is a choice, as in, hey, we can introduce you to, but
Yeah,
you get to choose how long you
yeah.
continue to get to know this person.
My husband and I have been together 25 years, married almost 24. And we have no children and no pets. And I used to be able to say no plants, no pets, no kids, but someone bought me a plant when my dad passed 5 years ago, and now I have instead of having one, now I have three potted plants.
Oh my
But
gosh.
there's no distractions in our home,
Mm,
right? Like there's no kids running around that all of our intention. So we have had to say, like, we have to relationships are work. And anyone who
right.
thinks differently is wrong. I'm just going to say is wrong because relationships are work. And
They
a
are.
couple of years ago, we go through patterns, right? Like I know when I'm being triggered, and I'm like, "What is this thing? I can't." So I said to a friend of mine, I were talking the other day. She goes, I just for one day wish I was unconscious. I'm like, I know, we're always so curious. Like, what made that happen? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? But my husband and I had this conversation where we're like, we actually could walk away. It would be really easy. There's like nothing to separate, sell the house, split it 50-50, and we're good. But we both recognize that the shit that we get triggered in has nothing to do with the other person, and we're just going to carry it into the next relationship. So we actually like each other. So let's figure it out together.
Right. And
And then if
how
we and if
incredible.
we still, it's still not going to work, then okay, fine. But like knowing that him driving me crazy is not about him, it's about whatever is going on in me and vice versa, owning that, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
in any relationship. Right? Like the
Right.
person at the supermarket that triggers you because they didn't put the cart in the right way has nothing to do with that person. That has to do with you, and you have to look at what the fuck just happened. Why am I having this response?
No, you are so, I mean, I get chills even in how you shared. It would be very easy for
Yep.
you and your husband to separate ways, as you said. And at the same time, the way I see relationships and even marriages, especially those that have been together for a long time, like you, 25 years, that's incredible. You know, in many ways, for that to happen, there is a death and rebirth cycle that happens. And I think when you can look at those as portals, right?
Yeah.
We're going through a death portal, right? We are experiencing difficult conversations. We're trying to find the place that we choose to align. Once you get through that, and then you have that rebirth of, wow, now we get to experience this relationship. One of the biggest things someone had asked recently was, how do you guarantee a marriage to work? And I said, well, that's, I think, the not the most effective question,
Mm.
because there is no guarantee on marriage.
In
Even with,
life, there's two guarantees, taxes and death,
yes,
right? Yeah.
exactly. And actually, that's what I told. I said,
Yeah.
the only thing anyone needs to do in life is die. That is truly all we need to do. The
Yeah.
rest is our choice.
Yeah.
And so when we come into marriage or come into relationship with someone else, we are choosing through our intention to be with this person. And that intention could be forever, right? We could choose it forever. However, life happens, maybe they get hit by a bus, God forbid, they may not always be there. So it's always that choice of, I will choose to be with this person. And I think when we can understand that as marriage is a choice to choose.
Yes.
And the best case is when we both choose each other, as it sounds like you in your
And some
marriage.
days it's easier than others, right?
A
It's
100%.
still work. We I don't know how much you know about sacred contracts, soul contracts, right?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
so a few years ago we kind of realized that our original contract had run its course because what we came into the relationship for had changed because we have changed. So we created a new contract for ourselves. Like, okay, well, what's our new contract? What's our new
Mhm.
agreement here going forward?
I
Right?
think
And
that's so healthy
yeah.
because we will change, right? What job do we show up to? And the employer says, you can mess up as much as you want, you can show up late, all of these things, and we will never fire you.
Right.
And it doesn't exist. And I
Yeah.
think when we understand that, relationships is, as you said earlier, it's taking ownership. It's that
Yeah.
choice of, and it may look like, hey, what we knew is not us anymore. We
Right.
get to create this new contract between us. One of the things that I've resonated with is the I do until our soul contracts are no longer aligned.
Ooh.
Meaning I want to love you
Yeah.
beyond this lifetime, but
Right.
I want to love you in the most healthy way
Right.
that is not depleting your soul purpose and depleting my soul purpose, but serving each other and our
Yeah.
union, yet then creating this vibrancy together. And I really, really think I see relationships almost as three levels. is role mate. This was years ago when we're merging kingdoms, we're merging farms, and you have your role and I have my role, and it's very duty oriented. And love existed in the parameters, but it wasn't the focus.
Yeah.
And then soulmate kind of evolved into this I can't breathe without you. And
Mm.
this, very mystical aspect of I want to be with you all the time. And then the third being whole mate, which is essentially role mate is I dutifully need you, right? To fulfill these duties that we have. I need you. Soulmate is like I'm gonna die without you. And whole mate is I fully choose to need you. So on my
Hmm.
choice of me being whole, I choose to need you. And for me, I feel that is the one you're talking about where you're choosing it consciously. You are identifying your sacred contracts as you go through time because you will evolve
Yeah, I
and
love that.
your
Homemade.
person.
I like that.
Hmm.
So a lot of the clients that I work with are, I call it addicted to busyness, right?
Hmm.
Um, Former version of myself, right? Like, let me just do, and have a feeling. I don't even know what that means, right? Have an
Hmm.
emotion. At the early stages of my relationship, I had much more of an avoidant attachment style. If something, if, and it wasn't, and because now I'm much more in the secure, but it was what I learned from how my mother responded to conflict. And it really was just I shut down. So that whole vulnerability is a four-letter word, right? So I had to learn how to be vulnerable, how to feel the feelings. And I'm
Hmm.
curious, how much do you think that, I mean, as a society, we
Hmm.
don't feel, right? We're told emotions aren't, as a kid, look at a kid that falls and cries and they're told, you're fine, stop crying, you're
Hmm.
okay, right? Like from an early age, we're told emotions aren't good, right? And I'm curious what your thoughts are on how much that plays into why relationships don't actually survive because couples aren't willing to actually feel their feelings and
Hmm.
recognize what's coming up for them.
Yeah, this is a deep topic.
Right?
I think the doing energy that you
Yeah.
were sharing about constantly being busy. I think this is, we could say, a distraction, but also dependent on how you were raised, it could be a way to feel love,
And
someone who
worthy, like worthiness can be attached to
worthy,
it.
right? I
Yeah.
need to produce, I need to
Right.
be productive, right?
Oh, they need something from me. They must love me. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yep.
100%. And I
Yep.
think um, when we look at the masculine archetype and we look at the feminine archetype, the masculine archetype is more the doing energy,
Right.
especially even the way a biological man's body is designed. It can hunt, it can, it's built for speed, it's built for war, it's built to last through a lot of doing, right?
Mm,
And then when you look at the feminine archetype, the biological woman, and especially the cycle that a woman goes through in a month, she goes through four different phases.
right.
There's so much being energy that exists. Now, we of course embody both, but we primarily will tap into one. And the hope is that we can consciously choose. And
Right.
so I feel a lot of, women do divert to the doing energy. And it's not a bad thing. But when you become aware of it and you can understand, wait, am I doing out of my choice or am I doing out of automaticness, habit, or to distract myself? Or to earn love or all of these things, right? For everyone, it's so many different activations. But I really think when you can learn how to be, as in you start to feel the breath that exists in you. And I think our breath is one of the most underrated, powerful things that we have. Like when
Yeah.
we're born, the first thing we have is breath. That's the first being of our life. And so
And we
the
forget to do it. We
and we forget to
forget
do
that it
it.
grounds us, that it centers us, that it
A
flows
hundred
through us.
percent.
Yeah.
So I always tell people it's not about removing the busyness. It's more about how do you weave being with doing. And
Mm,
this is my favorite tip to give people. If you're in line at a coffee shop and it's a busy coffee shop, right? There's hustle and bustle around you. I want you from the second you enter the shop to take a breath and
mm,
pause. Literally, you step into the shop, inhale, exhale, and take a moment to look around and notice. Do you notice any colors? Do you notice any smells? Like, really be in your senses and start that with the breath. And it's okay if someone passes you and gets in line in front of you. That's okay.
right.
Because again, all you need to do is die. The rest is choice. So you
Right.
are going to choose to feel. And so as you get into line, not getting on your phone, because that's again another doing energy. We're going to scroll, we're going to check my
Yeah.
email. Keep your phone in your pocket and feel into that breath. What does my body feel it wants to drink?
Mm,
And sometimes, anytime, most times, anytime I ask someone, hey, when you order a drink, in the morning, is it the same drink every day? And most people say yes, it's the same drink. I always get this, caramel macchiato, fancy
right.
drink. And I'll say, but did your body want that? Or was
Habit.
it out of the habit of that
Yeah.
doing, okay, I got to get to the coffee shop, I got to get to the work, I got to get to this meeting? And so that is really where we're starting to develop this home within ourselves that, okay, I'm going to nourish the home that is me. And in this breath, I'm going to feel into this body of what does it want to drink? Maybe today it's a cup of tea. Maybe tomorrow it is the espresso, whatever it is. And to block out the people around you of, oh, they're ordering that, I'll order that too.
Mm,
No, what does Francine want
right.
in her body? And I feel when people are able to start to do this, and it's crazy because it's like, oh, that's just a cup of coffee. Like, what do you mean? That's just a coffee shop. But if you really, the purpose is living your life in one breath at a time. And what is the most true in this breath. And that breath is going to take you to the inhale. It's going to take you to the exhale. And then you'll start to live one step at a time and then one day at a time, but all bringing it and centering it to your breath to be able to be and then be able to do. And we want to weave those two. To exist fully in one and the other, it's too extreme.
I love that. You know,
Mhm.
as I call myself a control freak in recovery, and a busy woman. It's interesting because now when I am busy, I feel it in my body. Like I feel it differently. I don't like it as much. Like before, it used to come so naturally to me, but now I'm like, there's too much to do,
Yeah.
right? I can get it done, but it doesn't feel good in my body anymore to be
And
that.
my guess is, do you feel now that, because I would agree, when you are conscious of that doing and then you can feel the being, when you are able to recognize that, do you feel you now show up to your duties or the things you want to do in life more present?
It depends. Like if I've maxed myself out, I'm just like, I'm a machine and I just got to get shit done.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have a client or I'm getting ready for a podcast, I'll take a breath, right? Before I turn the camera on to be
Mm-hmm.
present for the other person too, right? And it's a practice because I have lived in the masculine energy for so long. And my work has been to ease more into the feminine. And, I just had my left knee replaced, right? So no mistake. That is
Yeah.
the left side of my body, right? So there is definitely a practice, but I'm going to hit a big number in February, birthday wise. So it's been many years that I've been in
Yeah.
this do mode.
Mm-hmm.
And, 10 or 15 that I've been more easing into it. So it's more, there's a choice there, right? I have to go,
Right.
oh, hold on. I need to, like when I look at my calendar for 2025, I'm like, we're creating a lot more white space, right?
Mm-hmm.
I took a few weeks off recovering from surgery, so I've been cramming stuff in, but I'm like going into 2025, there needs to be a lot more white on my calendar,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
You
the dream,
pinpointed something, not to jump in there,
yeah,
but you
no, go.
pointed something so simple but so powerful. And a big thing I hear when I hear a woman or a man or, whoever is, deploying a lot of masculine energy, right? That's really what it is. You're deploying that.
Yeah,
And them saying, well, I just don't know how to switch, right? I have too many things to do. Like even if I wanted to, I couldn't, right? And again, coming back to my philosophy is like you are taking ownership. And, when we go through a breakup, it's easy to blame the other person, right? But there's accountability too that needs to be taken on our side as well. And I think when we can flip it from, well, there's so many meetings, I just don't have space, I don't have time, to I get to have these meetings. I choose to have these meetings, and
right.
I also choose to create the space. And
Yeah,
I really feel in those little decisions, even the example of every time I step into a coffee shop, I will start with my breath and I will start with looking around the room. You will then be shaping the thing that comes after that. And it's not about drastically, and I used to think this, right? I used to be very go-getter, super goal-oriented, where I would be so focused on the end goal. And I would almost try to speed like a race car through point A to point B and for kind of miss like all this other space and journey in between. And then I would arrive at the goal and I'd be like, okay, what's next? I
right,
accomplished that, right? And so coming into the ownership of, I don't have to live life in chaos. I don't have to live a life that's constantly busy. If I choose to, and I choose to take that stress on, it is my choice. And I
right.
think when we understand that, of, like you said, there has to be a lot more white space on my calendar. Well, who creates your calendar? You.
Right.
Yeah. So it's, this one of my girlfriends, she was like, she's kind of known me through the different journeys, and she's like, a lot of the things that you encourage is really about people shifting themselves. And she's
100%.
like, and I said, well, here's the thing. If I were to work with someone and say, you know what, I hear you, that person over there, your boss, they really need a change. I wouldn't be giving you value. If I were to work with ways for you to shift inside, for you to adjust, then now we have a world we can totally play with. We have a
Right,
universe we can completely shift and change. And so 2025, I already know for you is going to be more relaxed.
right.
And I would argue because you are able to take care of the home that is yourself, now those meetings that you show up to, you will show up way more vibrant. Not that you don't now, but you're going to show up in a different resonance that
Well, it's
you'll
not going to be rushed, right? Like, all right, got to
exactly
check. I'm not just crossing something off
checking
my,
it off and
right.
saying,
I
okay,
mean,
now.
I have a Christmas tree in my living room that still is only half decorated. We started decorating on Sunday, and then I was like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. And then Monday we put half the tree, and I was like, I need to stop. And because
Yeah.
I need to take care of me. And my
Mhm.
husband last night was like, do you want to do the tree? I'm like, nope, I'm good. Like it might be the weekend. Where in the past, like a half done Christmas tree with the boxes still all over my house would have driven me crazy. And I'm like, it'll get done or it
Yeah,
won't.
it'll
Like
get done.
it's yeah, or it won't. And that's okay too.
And
Right?
I think balancing this with it's there's a big difference between I'm just not going to do it because I just don't feel it, right? And I'm going to be lazy, right? There's a big difference between recognizing this is something I need to show up to. And though I may not feel like I want to show up, I'm still going to have the discipline to show up.
Right.
And then there's a difference of, okay, we really need to cancel this, and I think that that is important to add to the cocktail
Yeah,
of marriage.
absolutely. Because it again, it all comes down to choice, right? Like,
Right.
and what are we choosing? And I'm curious, like, when we talk, bringing it back to relationships, we get to, you talked a little bit about we can't change the other person. And I
Mhm.
learned, I think I was in coaching school, so 12 or 13 years ago. Um, I worked for this gentleman who, let's just say, wasn't a great person. And every time he sent me an email, my response was like this crazy person slamming the keyboard, right? And one
Mm.
day I was like, oh, he's never going to change, but I get to change how I respond to him. And I
Mhm.
think that's like that in all relationships, right? That was such a light bulb moment for me because daily I was just getting pissed off every single day when I was in the office. And then when I finally let go of, I don't have to get pissed off anymore. Like I can just be like, okay, that's him. And let me go about my, and that's how relationships are too. Like looking inward and being like, okay, what is that in me that just got triggered?
Right.
And because I can't change my partner, 25 years, I've tried. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It
Take it
doesn't
from
work.
her.
Right.
Oh.
So looking inward and thinking,
Mhm.
okay, well, why did that just trigger me? Where did that come from? What part of my life
Right.
is there,
Right.
does that remind me of?
Yes, it's when we take ownership, right? When we take ownership of our choices, how we choose to show up in life, and whether we agree with it or not, we are taking ownership and
Yes.
choosing, even if we say we're not, even from what we wear and whatnot. So when we take ownership, we actually embody and give space for the other person to take ownership as well. Because we are
Yeah.
then, yeah, we're not reacting in a way that is, oh my gosh, I have to, slam the keyboard and give that energy, right? We are just saying, you know what? I'm gonna let this person be who they are gonna be, and I'm gonna celebrate them for it. And then I will take ownership. And I love to use this analogy of we all have so many different emotions in ourselves and so many different parts. I call them our inner queens, our inner
Yeah.
king, right?
Yeah.
And usually, when, that part of us is feeling a super intense emotion, it's one of those inner queens or kings saying, hey, I need to speak. And if you were
Mm,
to visually picture um, them in an auditorium and then a throne, one of those inner queens is like, I need the throne. I need
right.
to be heard, which is that one of like banging on the keyboard and saying,
Right.
excuse me, there's something happening here that I don't like, right?
Right.
And I think when we aren't choosing to take ownership, those queens become chaos in our head.
Yeah.
And they're all trying to talk at once. But
When they
when we,
create stories, right? Like
exactly.
I'm sure, I mean, it's been so many years, but I'm sure with that person, he, I had judgment of him. I had a story if he wasn't listening to me, whatever it was. I had created all these stories, which may have been true or
And
may
then you
not have
go
been.
out on the journey with these stories.
Right, right, right. And then I become the victim, and then it just trickles. And I think that's like that in all relationships.
Hmm.
It is amazing to me when I watch other couples and also
Hmm.
in my own relationship, because my husband and I have had some great conversations over the years. And one that always stuck out with me was years ago. I don't know, it's got to be 15 years now. I said to him, you never plan anything. And he's like, well, every time I do, you tell me it's wrong. And I was like, I've actually never said that. But what I
Hmm.
would say is, oh, chicken. Oh, I really wanted steak. Oh, you want to go there? I don't really want. And he, because of his story, right, of his upbringing, he didn't do it right. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, this is fascinating, right? So then I started choosing how I use my words, right? Because
Right.
I'm a verbal processor. I was just processing shit outside. I wasn't
Yeah.
saying anything about his
Yeah.
decision. I was just like, oh, really? All right. Yeah, I guess I can have chicken. I really just want it, right? But
Right.
what he took in was he did it wrong because that's his stuff,
Right. That's his stuff.
right?
And I think you actually, so I'm curious what you shifted
The way
in,
that I spoke, like I wouldn't verbally process, no, and we've had many he knows he has
right.
this huge judge, and we've had many conversations, but I would bite my tongue a little bit more, right?
Hmm.
And not necessarily, I'm like, okay, and appreciate the fact that he actually did make an effort, right?
Hmm.
But I also was aware of how I said it, or and if it was really important to me, I would be
Mhm.
like, you know what, I know you wanted to have chicken, but can we go someplace that has both because I really want steak or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? But saying it a little bit differently and recognizing, I think it was more the awareness of just knowing how he was internalizing
Hmm.
my external mouthing.
Yeah, no, this is something that within the feminine archetype and the masculine archetype I see often. And one of the ways of romanticizing life
Which is,
is,
but that was my next question. I want to talk about that. Yeah.
yes, which romanticizing your life, that is actually one of the quickest ways to find the magic, because romanticizing is taking such a small detail and expanding it and having this gratitude and this adoration and this playfulness, right, towards it. And the language that you just shared there of, oh, chicken, women and men are very different in how we interact and how we receive things. And then you add how we were raised and the childhood and the stories and
Right.
all of this stuff. And so usually when someone shares, especially a woman will say, well, he just doesn't open the door for me. He doesn't plan trips. He doesn't do these things. And I will always get curious and I'll say, well, how do those things, how does the door get opened then? And how does the trip get planned? And every single time, well, I did it. I stepped in and did it.
Right. Who
And
said
I
you had
say,
to?
yeah, and it's always, well, I had to.
Right.
Again, coming back to no, you didn't. You didn't need to. And
I
so encouraging, hey, give that space.
Well, and it's
And
also asking for what you want too, right? Like I teach a workshop on manifesting your partner, and I started it once by saying, "All right, ladies, so you want this, this, and this from from your partner. Okay, you need to go start dating women." And everyone was like, "What?" I was like, "You want a girlfriend. Men and women are not the
oh,
same. They don't think
they're
the same. They're
not.
not going to show up the same. Stop,
Yeah.
stop setting them up to fail."
100%. I love that you said that. You want a girlfriend. No, you.
Right.
And that's why I think the reason, and of course, within a man and woman relationship, and even in relationships that are same genders,
Sure.
there's still that polarity that exists.
Right.
But I primarily work with men and women. And the thing that I tell women the most is I say, if you can be in your fullest expression of adoration and gratitude, this will give a lot in what you're asking. So, for example, let's say, the trash, because this is a popular one of like, you never take the trash out. Going back to the language of that is such an extreme claim to say to your, husband or
Right.
whatever. You never take the trash out. Because the truth is, he probably does take it out, just not when you want it, right?
Right.
Instead, coming into how can you rephrase that in a very adoration and gratitude and even playful way, you know? And so I encourage, and this is where when, earlier in the conversation when we're talking about doing and not wanting to feel, I really think if the woman can inform the man through feeling,
Mm.
then we have a man that will lead, meaning I feel it's so helpful when you take the trash out on Monday evenings, and it makes me feel like you care.
Right.
That man is gonna step up
Right.
and he's gonna be like, wow, like I want to help. But when you say you never take the trash out, like it needs to be done Monday
Well, then they
evening,
just shut down, right? And
they
not
shut
they,
down.
anyone will, right?
Anyone will.
I had a conversation. I run a group coaching program, and I don't even remember what the topic was, but for some reason, dishes in the sink became
Mm,
the conversation. And all the women, I think there were three women and myself, all of them were complaining about their partners leaving dishes in the sink, and all men leave dishes in their sink, and I have to do it. And I was like, hold on, I'm going to have a different perspective because in my house, I'm the person that leaves the dishes in the sink, and my husband washes them.
mm,
And his coach said to him, okay, stop doing it because he started to get resentful. Right. And I'm like, I'll get to them when I get to them. They're just not a priority for me. I mean, it's not like they're
right.
overflowing and there's bugs.
Right.
It's just I'm working and I'm just not going to
Yeah.
do my lunch dishes and maybe I'll do them tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
but he doesn't like them, so he would do them. And my love language is acts of service. So I love it when he does my dishes, right?
Hmm.
But I was like, first off, you don't have to do the dishes. Well, they're in the sink. Well, so what?
Exactly.
So what? Right? Like that's a choice that you're getting yourself worked up for the dishes being in the
Mhm.
sink, right?
Again,
So
coming back to that ownership.
yes, right? So
Yeah.
it was really interesting because I was able to split it because I was like, hold on, girls.
Hold on,
I'm
that's
the one
me.
in my house put it, right? And
Mhm.
my husband's coach, because apparently that came up in a coach, because he never shared it with me, he just did it. And I never
Yeah.
asked him to. And I was like, what? Hey, if you're doing my dishes, that means you
Like,
love me
okay,
because
cool.
that's
Yeah.
my love language, right?
Right.
And when he said to me, he goes, so I need to stop doing your dishes. And I was like, okay, why? And it like made me go, oh, because that is my love language, but I understood it. And he
Hmm.
will still do them. And I'm like, you can leave them. I will do them. He's like, well, I'm here. And I'm like, okay, but
Right.
that's your choice now, right? I'm not going to let dishes
Exactly.
go days. They will get
Right.
done, but that's your choice. But we decide that it means something,
Hmm.
right? They don't respect me. They don't care about me. They don't even know the dishes are in the sink. I've gone about,
Yeah. And
right?
I think with that, it's, I mean, the switch of no, I was the one that leaves the dishes was really good in the aspect of you weren't not wanting to do the dishes
Yeah.
and not, oh,
It
I'll
just
I'll
wasn't
leave
a
them.
priority for me, and it was for
Exactly.
him.
And I think for him to bring that to your attention, because it clearly meant something to him, you're right.
Yeah,
And then if at that point he chooses to do the dishes, okay, that's on him.
right,
But what does happen a lot in partnership, and it doesn't even have to be romantic, it could be a roommate situation, it could be whatever, where, oh my God, they put the dishes in the sink again, I'll just do it. This I'll just do it,
right,
remove that and
right,
recognize you can choose to do it and you can choose to then communicate about it and say,
right.
hey, be really helpful if you just did the dishes. And if they choose not to, then that's at the point where you get to decide, okay, is this something I want to fight? There's obviously different avenues there.
What do you think stops people from wanting to communicate that? Because that's asking for needs, right? Like it was a big deal for my husband to be like, hey, I need you to do your own dishes because I need to not do them anymore, right? That's
Mhm.
vulnerable. But why do you
Right.
think it's so hard for people to actually communicate what they need in relationships?
I think, to be honest, it is a form of vulnerability.
Yeah,
And I think vulnerability can be so scary because you are essentially letting someone know where a request and a need that they could very well say no, which would make you, because it means something to that person, it would make you feel like
right.
they don't care, right? And this is where I do think if you can be the person who really takes care of you, that, nourishes you, not at this, I don't need anyone else, but you really sit and feel all of the emotions in you. You're able to be vulnerable with yourself. When you are at a point that you need to share a vulnerability with someone, you will have the relationship with yourself built where you'll feel, hey, if they don't care about it, it's okay. I have me.
Right.
But I think it's really the vulnerability piece that makes people so scared. And often, and I see this a lot I kind of notice it the biggest in the dance scene, where we have a lead and we have a follow. And when you show up to a dance, the best dances are more of a conversation. It's like the
Mm.
lead proposes a lead and then the follow, takes the invite and whatnot. And so then I started to take this analogy and analyze relationships. And many times we come into relationship and it's almost as if we expect the person to take care of everything in our needs that we may not even
And
know.
know about it without me even telling you, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I really feel and how I live my life and how I dance is very much like I'm here with me, I'm observing me, I'm meeting myself, and then I'm expressing and exploring. And then I can use that same, you know, formula to meet the other person and I
Right.
will meet them as they are. But that relationship with yourself, that ability to say, hey, this means something to me, that takes strength and vulnerability. And I think that's why it's so scary.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that I teach my clients, because I do a lot of work with vulnerability, is you being vulnerable and asking is one thing. The person you're asking can still say no because that's their
Right.
boundary, but that has nothing to do with you.
Right.
And that can feel real, like I've gone out on a limb
And
and
you
now
didn't
you've
meet me
said,
back.
right, you didn't meet me,
Yeah.
but that has nothing to do with you. That is their boundary, and yay for them for having the boundary, right? But
Right.
it can feel that doesn't mean you don't still keep asking for what you need.
I like to offer it in this perspective that I'll say, are you asking or are you demanding? Because
Yeah,
there's a big difference.
yeah,
If you are asking, really what you're doing is you're sharing a vulnerability. You're sharing something about yourself, right? And again, that is you to the analogy of I'm going out on this limb.
right,
A demand is not necessarily vulnerable. It's you're attempting to share about yourself, but you have to do this, right? I'm out on this limb, you need to come meet me.
right.
And that is not celebrating the other person.
Yeah,
So when it's again, hey, is check in with you. Is this a demand or is this a request, right? And
right,
ask, hey, this would mean so much to you. And you're right, they don't have to, that's a boundary. Maybe they say no. But it then gives you the pathway of where you get to navigate from versus like sitting there with it in your head and being like, I wish they would just do this. I really need this. I'm going to get mad at them because I built resentment by not asking and not
right.
sharing and
And
all
that's
the
what it is. You build it goes back to creating the story because they didn't do the thing that you wanted. You probably didn't even ask for, but they should have known I needed it.
100%. Yeah.
Oh my God, this has been such a great conversation. So I always love to ask this question as we come to the end. What is something that you live by that you want to share with the listeners?
I love that. So many things. Okay. But I think the biggest thing that I would say is a ritual of mine. And the reason I use ritual is I think a practice is a little more disciplined. Okay,
Mm,
I'm gonna get it at this time, I'm gonna do this, right? But a ritual is a little more fluid. I really, really live in the one breath at a time. And
hmm.
how that shows up in my life can be in so many different ways. If it's been a season of traveling and busyness, in that breath, I may need rest. I may need to say no to some plans. And because I say no, I can open up all these other yeses.
Right.
So the one breath at a time. It's actually I recently got it as a little tattoo on my
Oh,
back
I love that.
because I put it on my spine as it is the spine to me. It is something
Mm,
that I really feel begins the magic. And magic for you is going to be different as how you experience to me
right.
because it's your breath, it's your life and I have such a spiritual mind first of like the breath is given, to us from our higher power, our higher being, however you have that relationship. And I think it's so, like I said earlier, underrated and so
Yeah.
powerful. But just start one breath at a time from the moment you wake up and your life will completely change.
That might be the name of the podcast, One Breath at a Time.
Oh,
Love
I
that.
like
I love that. I love when the guests actually say something that the last person, the podcast that dropped last week, I asked her the same question and her response was, do it for the story. And I was like, ooh,
Whoa!
that's the name. So at the end of every podcast, I pull card. Well, I've already pulled the cards, and I always love if because they always somehow are in alignment with the conversation.
Yeah.
So this time, this deck just came in the mail yesterday, and I'm choosing to use these and not the 70 other decks that I have. But these are the Denise Lynn Soul Coaching cards. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to invite Anya and everyone listening to just take a nice deep breath. And
Mm.
there are three cards in front of me. There's a center one, a left, and a right. And whatever pops into your head is the message that you are meant to get at this moment. So, Anya, what is that came to you?
Okay. I want to say center.
I love this shit. Flow,
Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy.
right? Because
Yes.
that's what we're talking about, right? The
Yeah.
feminine, the flow. I mean, it's
Oh, that is beautiful with the
right.
birds
Oh my
and
God.
oh.
And if you chose the card on the left, faith.
Mm, that's beautiful.
And
I
if you
would resonate with
choose the
that.
card on the right, adventure.
Oh, faith, flow,
Oh, an
adventure.
adventure. Just
Wow.
one breath. Oh
Yes.
my
Oh
God.
my gosh.
Anya, thank you so much for this conversation. This has been so much fun. And for those of you listening, thank you for joining me on today's journey towards a more enlightened and fulfilling life. I hope that today's episode has inspired you to embrace your inner wisdom and navigate your path with a renewed sense of purpose. Remember, transformation begins from within. Take a moment each day to connect with your higher self and trust that the universe is guiding you towards your highest good. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, share this podcast with anyone else who might benefit from the message. Your support really helps us reach more souls on their spiritual journey. Stay connected in both mine and Anya's community. Her both of our social media links will be in the show notes, as well as Anya, you have an offer that you want to share with the guests that they give. Why
Yes.
don't you just share that with them briefly?
Of course. And I would just want to say thank you so much. This was such a beautiful conversation and I
It's so
love
fun.
your wisdom, too. And just I felt so celebrated by you. So I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
And for those listening, Francine is in gorgeous red and looks amazing for this, December
Yes.
for magicalness. So the offer, just shoot me a message right now. I'm working through Instagram. Just reach out through Instagram or email or TikTok. I'll send Francine those. But just mention, and I came up with a little fun code. I
Go
said
for it.
fun because, and this will be 20% off of any work you do with me. Again, it is a application, so just really I would encourage taking a breath. And do you want to be uncovering and going on a journey of self-discovery and understanding the magic in you? If that feels like a full yes and it excites you, then let's totally work together and make some magic happen.
Nice. I love that. Well, until next time, continue to shine your light and walk in peace and love. I am Francine Terrell, and this has been Effin' Fridays with Francine. Anya, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.